to Shattermare Live, episode 6. Oh my
Hello,
gosh.
all.
How's it going, William?
It's going well. How about yourself?
Doing well. Man, I can't believe we made it to episode 6.
I know. Here we are.
This is great.
I did post it on Twitter this time, half an hour ago. So
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. It seems to be like Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. That's where we get most of our viewers right now. So
yeah,
to anyone who's coming in from the X platform, thanks for viewing, and we appreciate it. So, but I just want to say we have a special guest today, a guy who's involved in indie comics like us and has a lot of firsthand experience producing his book and going through all the motions. We actually watched a episode of his YouTube channel, Shannon Newby, last week to look at and review kind of the steps you go through if you're about to print your comic. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him on, and we're going to chat about indie comics this week. So here we go. Hey,
Hello.
Shannon, how's it going?
Hello. It's going wonderful. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh yeah, no worries. Thank you for coming. This is a great episode because a lot like we were talking about backstage before the show. You know, a lot of people talk about indie comics, and there's a lot of hype for indie comics. There's kind of almost like a indie comics revolution going on these days. But I don't see too many people talking about what it actually takes to produce a comic book. And so I thought it was great that you actually take the time to put the videos together to talk about your experience.
Yes, and I got into my YouTube channel because as I'm a writer and I'm a filmmaker and I'm a lover of comics, and I started doing comics back in 2020. Like 2019, I pushed the button at the end of 2019 saying like I'm going to go for this because I've been wanting to do it forever, since I was a kid. And in 2003 I had decided, I said, let me see what I can do. I want to get into it. And when I first tried to get into doing indie books, and I realized it's so much easier now than it was then. But I had friends in the industry that I talked to about it and seeing where I was, and I was like, it was a very high hill to climb. I'll just say that. So I had postponed it, and then getting fast forward to 2019, I said, I'm going for it. So my channel is supposed to be just about being a creator, and I posted a video about starting a comic book business because I just want to talk about all the creative stuff that I do. And it just took off. So then I started getting all these questions about, well, how do you print? How do you do this? How do you do that? So I made a video about that. And next thing you know, my channel became a comic book channel, or indie comic book channel. But I don't mind because it's actually doing really well now because it's that's where the audience found me.
Nice. Yeah. So did you? You were telling us that you also do independent filmmaking. Did
Yes.
you start with filmmaking side or the comic book side?
Yeah, so filmmaking side. So is there the music? Is that me? Is that?
Yeah, no, sorry. I kicked the background music on.
Oh, okay, no problem. So when I started, it all happened. I was 9 years old. So when I was 9, I saw E.T. and I fell in love with E.T. And then I remember I was talking to my father about it. I tell a story all the time. He was looking at the newspaper and talking about Steven Spielberg, and he was the guy who made E.T. And I realized, and then he also made Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I realized that movie directing was a job because I love movies. So I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a movie director. So since the age of 9, that was my dream. And the same thing at the age of 9, I read X-Men 162, Wolverine fighting a Sleazoid, and that just blew my mind. It's like it all happened at the same time. Like that was my awakening. So from that point forward, it was movies and comic books, and it's been that way ever since. You know what I mean? So so with that being said, yeah. So that's the two things I always wanted to do. So as a filmmaker, I made my first feature film. It came out in 2003 called Dirty Laundry, Air It Out. It's about One Night All Night Laundromat, and that's a story within itself. It took me 5 years to make that movie, but it wound up being I got it in blockbusters nationwide under my own publishing, which is a big deal at the time. And then the thing I'm most known for, probably still at this point, was I made a TV show. I had an independent national public television show called Heavy Sedation, which is a sci-fi comedy show. So it was like a sketch comedy sci-fi show, and that so that aired all over the United States and in Canada, and I kind of got famous from that, and so and then so I came to the point in 2020. I just like I want to make my book, I'm just ready to make my book. So I just threw caution to the wind and went for it.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll show that off a little bit later here, but I want to ask you, so do you, I guess let me back up. So do you write the book? Do you draw?
So yeah, I write. I draw terribly. I've always have. There were times when I was drawing a lot and I was getting kind of good at it. I'm not going to say I got reasonably okay. I'm not even going to say good. And
welcome to the club.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah.
So, but I stopped. I haven't drawn in years. So now you go back to draw, it's like a muscle. I haven't used it. So my drawing it's terrible. It's like, this looks horrible. So I don't even draw. But I think because now that I'm publishing comic books, I need to actually start working on it again. Not that I'm looking to draw my own books, but just so I could, at least perspective wise, help whoever I work with as an artist. Say I'm trying to do something kind of like this.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to explain it to an artist if you could even give them a little sketch and
exactly.
show this kind of what I'm looking for.
Right.
Do you find that writing a script for a comic book, like I've said this to people, but I don't know how similar it is because I haven't written a script for an actual film or a play. Is it like how similar is writing a script for a comic book, writing a script for like a TV show or movie?
Well, for me, and because I've written a lot of movie scripts. Needless to say that most of them never got produced, but I wrote them. So, for me, writing a movie script is not hard for me because I've done it so many times. It seems like a little bit more challenging to write a comic book script for me because it's like I'm really having to explain, what's being seen in a way because I'm writing it for an artist to interpret, and then and I said this in one of the videos. You got to write it in a way that the artist can look at it, read it, interpret it, and then take what's being written on the page and transfer it into an illustration. Right. With a movie script, you don't have to be as, I wouldn't say necessarily detailed, but as exact with the visuals. It's sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
So. One of the great things I always like to talk about, like the movie Rocky, when they talk about Rocky, it's like one of the best things lines he wrote. He talked about the gym. He says, mixed gym, and the way he described it was, it's a trash can turned inside out. And that's all. It's like, and that was like that's perfect. I mean, that's a perfect way to describe something. It's like exactly what you're talking, what you're looking for.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that makes sense because if you, back in the day, especially when we're talking about Steven Spielberg, Rocky, the budgets that they made those movies on compared to the budgets that they make movies on today. It's crazy how creative they were and how creative they had to be.
Yeah.
Because of the constraints. And yeah, they really were filmmakers back then because the directors had a lot more, they weren't, I don't want to be insulting to people today, but it seems like today directors are more like project managers.
No, I agree.
Yeah, where they've got to
just. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say where they, they're kind of just managing a bunch of different teams. You've got like your cinematographer, your director. A lot of the times they're not even involved in the script. So you've got those people, and then you've got like, all the camera, this whole like tons of people that you see in the credits of the movies. And back then it may have been like 30 seconds of credits.
Yeah.
Like so Jaws. You're much more.
Jaws was like less than 2 minutes of credits.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're much more involved. So it makes sense that you could kind of describe what's happening on a script in a movie, because then you're going to go shoot it. So then you're kind of going, okay, well, as long as it looks like a trash can turned inside and out,
right.
We're going to be in a gym. We're going to be, the actors are kind of going to be around here. They're going to say their lines.
Actually, this kind of segues into a question, and this is one of the reasons I went from novelized to comic book, because my understanding, and I don't know much, if anything, about filmmaking. So you start with a script, and then somewhere along the line, I've talked to a few artists since I've been in this sphere, and some of them had jobs storyboarding.
Right.
And so you storyboard the script, you hire an artist, storyboard it. That's how it's supposed to be shot. And basically with a comic, that's kind of done for you, right?
Right.
That's kind of what I always thought. Yeah,
So,
like, go ahead.
So as a director, when you're getting storyboards and hiring someone, you're saying, you know, it's shot like this, it's a medium, it's a wide, so forth and so on. And it's very similar in writing a comic book script because I hire artists to draw my books. The difference is I say that for hiring an artist, it's like I have an idea of what I want to do and I explain it, and I do show my scripts on my YouTube channel, like of what I wrote. And then, but I feel like I always want to give the artist some breathing room to create. Because if you say just draw it exactly like this, it kind of artists want to explore, express themselves as well, you know. So I think when you're hiring someone to do storyboards for a film, you're really telling them, I'm shooting it this way, draw it this way, you know. But when I think you're hiring an artist to do a comic book, say draw it like this, but you want to give them space to kind of express themselves.
Yeah, you're giving them more freedom to create the scene and maybe the background for the most part.
And that's what I did with my book because I really didn't know how to write a comic script, and we got Luke Aglietta, Death Metal Hero at deathmetalhero.com. Check him out.
Shout out there. Yeah.
And he read my story and he knew exactly where I was going with it.
Okay.
And he's on board. He's in, and so far, you know, we're 15 pages in, and it's been pretty good. We got cards done. We got the cover done. We'll probably have Jimmy Reyes do the variant cover as well. And we even got a poster done. So
yeah, making good progress.
Yeah, but Luke is on board and he's dialed in, and him and I talk offline a lot as to what I'm looking for and what I want, and he knows. He just dialed in, and it's great. And he has freedom. It's like, dude, do your thing, man. And so far his instinct's been on point.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to see, like, because at this point we've got between William, Kyle, and then a couple of the other guys, we've got like 4 creative teams working on different books.
Cool.
So even the scripts change up a little. Like Williams is probably the loosest. Like we went from like a descriptive novelized version to a kind of an outline, and then so Luke has a ton of freedom. Well, I should say a ton of freedom because there's still a lot of descriptive stuff in there, but it's not like panel 1, you know, character A. It's more or less like, okay, here's the description of the scene. Maybe it is closer to a movie script. I don't know, because it's description of the scene, and then it'll have character dialogue, and then it's kind of like, well, the rest is up to you, Luke.
Yeah, and I think the dialogue really does set the scene. I was very descriptive in my novelized version, which is still on our drive, so he can always refer to that as to how something looks or how this or that. But yeah, my second book, which I need to get back to. Time's been a constraint. I do have, you know, show this or stress this, or, you know, I have gone more, you know, more traditional in a comic book script after I kind of saw Hardly Heroes and the Frankenstein book that I reviewed or critiqued. And,
yeah.
And so now I kind of have a clue, and I'm learning, you know.
Yeah, and Kyle started out like you. His was a little more outline, descriptive, and then over so many issues, he got, you know, and part of that was just adapting to the artist, because we knew the artist sometimes would kind of stray and go off into weird things. I don't know if this is something you've ran into, Shannon, but like, you know, artists are very distinct in their styles, and like some of them, you know, it's like you're on the same wavelength,
right?
And you don't even have to tell them much, and they're just like, yep, and then they nail it. And then some of them you've got to like to the T describe, you know, if it's something specific you want in a panel or a page.
So a couple things with that. So I do have actually a video on my channel about how to write a comic book script. So the one thing about I was going to say, but one thing is this is like, There's no format or standard for comic book scripts in the industry, and as a film person, when you write a script and you have to turn it into people, it's a very exact art form. It has to be exactly the way that they expect it to be, or especially if you're dealing with people Hollywood wise, they will throw it right in the trash. Like they won't even bother to read it. They'll look at it, and if it's not at least 90 pages and one page should be 1 minute of screen time. Doesn't matter if you got like, the greatest thing ever written, they'll throw it right in the trash if you're an unknown person. I mean, if you're like M. Night Shyamalan, they're gonna read it regardless. So, but when it comes to comic books, there's no exact format. The biggest thing is that you make sure, William is, just like William's saying, as long as it's clear and it's concise and it makes sense and it's laid out where a person can get into it and they're reading it and not feel like they're getting lost or like, who is this or why is this person here? Just following the same, following a clear and concise format. And there's a couple of different people, like couple formats that people use consistently. And like I said, again, I have a video on how to write a comic book script, and I just show you like the two different forms people use. But as far as doing, like having an artist not getting it, one thing and as a matter of fact, I was going to put this up. I have a shirt I haven't posted yet. One of the best things to do is picture references. So if it's doing something with people, I was like, because I had one scene where I was like, he's standing at the mall and he's looking out, like he's standing like behind a pillar, but he's looking out. And every time I said it, I tried to explain it to the artist. He kept sending it back wrong. And I was like, this is not it. So I actually went out to the mall and got someone to take my picture. And I said, like this. So that fixed the problem,
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I didn't mean to cut you off, but since we're talking about filmmaking and scripts and things, so from what I understand, the average movie script is around 120 pages, and they shoot around 4 a day.
So it's 1 minute of script should be 1 minute of screen time. So a 90-page script was 90 minutes on screen. If again, Hollywood standards, like if you have, you should so if you're turning a script, then it should be between 90 and 120. If it's less than 90, if it's 89 pages, they'll throw it away. If it's 121, they'll throw it away. Again, if you have some juice and you're connected, I mean, they're not going to do that. But if you're not, then if you're unproven, they may just do that.
Like if you're Zack Snyder, you make a 5-hour Justice League movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays
I can't imagine
like most movies are probably 180 to 320 pages.
Right. They got to tell the Russo brothers, this is too long for the Avengers. But yeah, they shoot pages per day. Like, so how many pages you get? Your shooting ratio. So so that's all pretty pre-planned for your shooting days. Like, how many days do we have? And 4 pages a day is, depending on what kind of movie you're doing, that can be a lot. So there's some movies to where it's like things have gotten a lot faster since everything has become digital. But a typical movie was shooting somewhere around, in back in the day, about 3 pages a day, 2 pages a day, 2.5, and then some days, but some people are shooting like crazy amounts of things. I'm not gonna.
Well, like the Sci-Fi Channel, their movies when they used to come out with them they were shooting 8 pages a day.
Yeah, and they look like it. So,
yeah, there you go.
Because they're just getting it down, man.
Yeah.
But that's what they're doing, because it's like the Tyler Perry way of shooting. He's shooting whole movies in 14 days. And it's like, but it's insane. But again, he's
John Carpenter did Halloween in a month.
Yeah. And it's not, and like, I'm gonna say this, it's not a bad thing that you're shooting it fast. It really isn't. But if you know what you're doing and you know how to, because my TV show, so we were shooting the show, I was shooting whole episodes in one day, but I had got to a point to where it's like I knew what I was doing, and I saved time. I only shot exactly what I needed. It was very little extra coverage. So if I knew if I'm shooting this, I knew it's going to be a close up to the next scene. Like I already had it in my head, I would just shoot the close up. So I could shoot fast because I knew what I was doing. It was sketch comedy, in film form, So so there are some episodes on my channel as well. So so it's nothing wrong with shooting fast if you know what you're doing. Sure. I think what like you're saying, if you got too many people trying to say do this, do that, and they're just accepting bad shots or accepting bad performances because the clock is ticking. That's really when a problem becomes a problem.
Yeah, like if you're rushing through something,
right?
You're just ignoring,
like
errors or bad takes,
cut print.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like I said, I remember watching years ago an episode of the Tyler Perry show when it first started, like the House of Pain or whatever I think it was. And I'm watching the show, and this is on TV, and you see he clearly forgot his line. Like the actor clearly forgot his line, Alan Payne, and he just said, yeah, and they left it in. I was like, wow, and again, I don't bash Tyler Perry. I have a lot of respect for his business acumen and things that he's done. I mean, not all of his movies are always my favorites. I'll just say it that way, but I do respect his hustle.
No, it's a good example to point to.
He created his own niche, and just that's where he sits, and he's profitable.
Yeah,
and he has been criticized by his own community for playing women.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about that personally, but yeah,
it's like, and it's like, you ever heard of Flip? Brian hasn't, but there's this guy named Flip Wilson who was fucking hilarious.
Geraldine.
Geraldine. And he was a comedian. He had this female character.
I want my money, honey. Geraldine.
Geraldine. So look him up, man. He was hilarious.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up. I always thought Tyler Perry just took. He kind of took what what was his name? He kind of took that act from just escaped me. He's a comedian. He did the. Is it the Flubber movies or whatever?
Robin Williams?
No, am I thinking wrong? No.
The original Flubber movie?
What was the movie? The guy, he was taking like some kind of serum, and he was like,
"Oh, you mean Dr. Dolittle, Eddie Murphy?"
Yeah, Eddie Murphy. There you go. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know why I thought Flubber. We got there though. We got there. It was some crazy, but yeah, because Eddie Murphy was playing like all his family members.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
But he's very good at that.
Yeah. Like in Coming to America, the barbershop scene was him in Arsenio Hall. All the white guys and all. Cassius Clay's a bad motherfucker. Cassius Clay was 75 years old when he fought Joe Louis, or whatever. It's like that was all Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall doing that shit.
Yeah, he never got shit for that. I don't think he did.
No.
Did he?
No. It was actually considered genius because people didn't know.
Yeah, if you do it well enough, and saves a lot of money on but
it costs because of time of all makeup, you know what I mean?
Here's the thing. True. Yeah, you have actors that can pull it off and makeup artists that can pull it off.
Right.
Do it. That's what theater is. That's what film is.
Well, I'm gonna say as an art. I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say as an artist, I think artists want to create, and I think a lot of times what happens is people allow. I think the conversation we had before, like let art be art, and stop worrying about all the other things. I mean, you should always be responsible about what we say or answer to what we, but let art just be art. I think people want to always make social commentary about everything.
They want to make rules. They want to make rules for art.
Yeah.
And you can't be an artist if you have to follow rules or checklists or you simply can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like corporate mandates.
It's like Rick Rubin says, I don't know if you heard about, he has a book and talk about the audience comes last. And he says, you make art for yourself and you hope people find your art and appreciate what you do. And but you shouldn't be, but say don't make art for just because you want to make sales. And I say this, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's not what I do. I mean, because people make things to people say, oh, he just made it to make money. I mean, well, people make socks to make money. I make socks because I want to sell them, so I don't hate people for making art just to sell it. But for me, creating art, being a creative person, it's like what keeps me sane. If I'm not creating, I'm not okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's weird. We're only criticizing you here if you sell a comic book for like $35 when everyone else is selling it for like $5 to $10. Yeah,
you got your trading cards $75. It's like
that will be like. Well,
do people actually make money that way? Because my price point is really low, and it should be higher than mine.
So Eric July pretty much
No,
said the
it's-
reason why he's so popular and then also so vilified at the same time is that his first comic broke all the right. It sold for 3.7 million.
Really?
First
Yeah,
campaign.
he had a huge wave of support behind that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's dropped off. His second book sold for 2.3, and then he's had 2 books come out now that haven't cracked 1.5. So there's been a cooling off period. He was featured on Fox News. Fox, like when he came out with his first book. I mean,
He is
and
connections
then
to
people actually read it. Yeah, he has connection to the Blaze.
like conservative talk network stuff.
Yeah,
It's
that
the
says a
Blaze.
lot.
So,
Yeah.
but
Even though he voted
Yeah.
for Obama twice.
Right.
But so I don't know how conservative he calls himself a libertarian. That's fine. I have no problem. I just want a good comic and good art. And I read them, and they didn't do anything for
got to
me.
compete. Yeah, you still have to
So-
compete. You still have to make something good.
Yeah, and
know?
I think that's the thing. Like people make stuff that's good, and they're just waiting for the chance to actually get seen. And then it's like someone who makes something that's maybe it's not as good, but they have the ability to get seen. Yeah, but at some point you got to show and prove, because it shouldn't matter. I should pick up his book, not know who he is, and enjoy the book, and then hear the backstory after the fact.
Well, you
Right,
know that
which-
his third book, he had Chuck Dixon write it. You
Oh
believe
wow.
that?
Yeah, I mean, he's
he
got
has,
Mike
Gabe El
Barron.
Taib and Cliff Richards doing his art, which is terrible. My art's better than his. What are you doing, Cliff Richards and Gabe El Taib? What? No,
I
I'm
think-
just kidding.
Yeah,
You
I don't
think?
know. I don't know how much Eric involved is. Well, I don't disagree with you there. I'm just saying I don't know how much Eric's even involved at all.
The
there,
art,
so
the art
I think
is
he's-
queasing. It's blue green throughout the colorization. Every wall is blue green. Every floor is blue green. It's like I'm about to puke. I feel like I'm in prison.
So is the guy who did the artwork? So here's my question, because this is one thing. The one thing I've learned, going through my whole process of being an indie creator in comic books for the last few years. Sometimes you'll hire an artist because you see their work and it's like, wow, this person's really good, and then you get them to work for you, and then they're turning in like slot pages, and what you realize is that
Yup.
they can do better than what they give you, but they basically cutting corners because they just want to get it done. And it's like I say, I know you can do better work than this because I've seen it, and I've had a thing where I was doing with one artist where when we first started, the pages were great, and then as we got going along, they started getting less and less detailed. I'm thinking, what is this?
It got sloppy.
Right, and it was just like and I think sometimes they get people that they think if they don't know any better, I'll just see how far what I can get away with. As far as what I turn in, and if he accepts it, he accepts it.
I think that's a lot of it, because I think
Right.
Eric basically hasn't gotten out of that phase where he's like, oh my god, people are drawing the art for my characters,
Right.
so he's got rose-tinted glasses on, and then he's coming back and hiring people and spending way too much money to have someone else review and edit their art when he should be the one looking at it. He
Right.
should be the one critical.
We could review the Yaira trailer, but here's something I want to put out there.
Well, that's a whole different
This
thing.
This is a way to fix the video game industry and shit like that, and that is don't have deadlines. Let
Mhm.
people
Sure, yeah.
finish their projects, and if it takes them an additional month, then it does. Don't promise something on July 17th and force your artists and your programmers or whatever you're involved in to meet that deadline, because then that's when things go sideways. So just say it'll be
Yeah,
ready.
I mean-
It's ready.
Yeah, I mean, like that's why we have kind of soft deadlines where we're like,
Right.
okay, let's try to launch by holidays this end of this year. Like for example, for Mercenary Guild, like if we're cutting it close, I'm not going to say, okay, well, Luke, you got a week to finish these last 10 pages,
Right.
because of
Yeah,
course it's gonna
he'll
turn out
finish
like
them and
trash.
they'll look like shit.
Yeah, they'll look like shit. So
So that's great. In the world of commerce, the only problem is like if you don't give some people like if you don't give them a deadline, they'll just let it. It's like they'll float forever. We're supposed to have this done. In May. Here we are in July, and you still haven't got.
Yeah.
What have you
That's
been
true.
doing? So
especially artists.
So I would say give them a deadline. It's not really the deadline. Excuse me.
Because
Yeah,
there'll always be something else they can prioritize over it.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be firm, but you give them a little flexibility. It's kind of hard to. There's a fine line when you work with several artists. You kind of know, but yeah. So in Eric's case, it's weird because he's hiring these guys to come back, but it's just a lack of his experience. It's like we were saying earlier. If you put in the work, if you go through step by step,
right,
and you figure out, okay, what like say he, for example, he came out with ISOM 1, but instead of releasing it to the general public, he got a handful of pros and said, okay, I want you to tear this book apart. Like you were saying, actually, we could probably segue into what you were telling us earlier about hiring the consultant. But, hiring, like, even if he has to pay people, tear this book apart. Tell me what's wrong with it. What's the issue? I want totally honest. And then he goes back to the drawing board, and it's like, yeah, it would suck if he has to do rewrites and, maybe have another artist come on board. But, I mean, based on what Williams said with the diminishing returns, it's, people were all on board at first because he was talking a big game, and then they fell off because they actually read the comic and they were like, oh, you're coming out with more comics and we have to buy those. This isn't just like a one and done, I buy like a piece of YouTuber merch and then to support the cause. No, like if you're actually going to have a real, product, solid and the creative product, not just a widget you can crank out a million times.
Right.
So,
yeah.
We were talking before the stream. Sorry to cut you off, but I thought it was interesting that you said you actually hired a consultant.
Yes.
Could you talk about that?
So, because I'm a sci-fi writer and I had my TV show, I used to, I started getting invited to different Comic Cons for my writer as a sci-fi person. Like not the big ones, but like some of the small comic book conventions. And so in doing that, I started to meet, people in the industry and meeting a lot of people, people who work for Marvel and DC and Image and, work for some of the, bigger companies. And I was able to kind of get an inside track about some of the things that I was looking at doing way before I even started doing it. So I ran into, a guy who's, he was worked in the industry for many years, worked as an editor. And he's like, I was asking questions, say, yeah, if you want to consult, let me know. And, and we can, he gets hired to do that. So I did the book and I gave it to him and he came back and said, you should do this, you should do that, and again, I want someone to be, it's better to, because of course I would love if you picked up and said, well, this is the greatest thing I ever read, but that didn't happen. So it's like, what's wrong with it? He's like, you need to do this, you should do that. He told me, get 3 issues ready before you do this. If you're going to go the route of trying to like retail stores, you want to have, a line of things going before you do that. So it was about, the book itself and the business of being in the business. So, I mean, he was very helpful and knowledgeable, but and on the indie side, I mean, there were certain things he didn't know because he's kind of worked in industry for many years. So, there were a lot of indie questions I had that he just couldn't answer. He couldn't give me an answer. I was that really answered my question. So again, it's like, and like I said, even with hiring a consultant, you still got to go out there and take some lumps. It's just
so he's just used to the publisher handling that stuff, basically.
Right. Well, he knew everything. He knew everything about industry wise, but when it came to like indie stuff, like the in-depth stuff of doing indie stuff, there's a lot of things he just didn't know. And I was appreciative they said, well, that's something I'm not familiar with.
Can you think of an example? Put you on the spot. Can you remember an example of what you're thinking of?
So like let me see. Well, one thing I'll say this one thing he told me that let me know. So he said when a retailer takes your book, they want to sell the majority of your books in that first week. If they're holding on to a lot of your books after the first week, then that's not good because that retail space, because new books are going to come and you got to move stuff along. So
excellent point, and that goes for every retailer,
right?
In any industry, they want to
they're there to sell books, right?
Yeah, you can't. Anything on a shelf is costing you money,
right?
Yeah, inventory space. So
Right.
what was the thing that
So
or sorry, go ahead.
no, so I was asking about basically like saying, well, how do I, trying to make deals with different retailers or trying to do this, because I'm not with Diamond or just kind of like basically saying like
Mm,
I want to get different retailers. Can I get them on my own distribution? Can I just mail stuff to them? Can I make connections and just kind of mail it? He's like, I don't know. I've never,
right,
that,
because
right.
he's always worked through the
The
distributors.
diamonds, right, things like that, right? So I was,
Right.
'cause I was asking questions like, I have an idea. So what if I were to meet with people and just say, can I just mail books? Is that possible? Can I get and I still don't know yet, but I'm gonna find out. Can I just
Yeah.
make books and make connections and go meet with the guys over at Bulletproof in New York and say, hey, I'm doing this. We're interested, and they want to get on board. And say, okay, I'll mail you books every 3 months when the next issue comes out. Can we do that?
Hey man, honestly, that's the best traction we've ever got. Is just going straight to the because most of these comic shops are still independent shops.
Right.
Like most comic shops aren't a chain. We have a chain in Florida,
Okay.
Coliseum of Comics, but so like dealing with someone at the shop level is virtually impossible. But for the
Okay.
most part, all the comic shops, so you can talk to. I guess this is more for people in the audience out in the world. You can go in and just approach the shop owner. For the most part, like you're saying, just talking to someone at Bulletproof.
Give them like a retailer's discount, and
Yeah, well,
It's
yeah, I
usually
mean,
40 to 50%.
yeah, you have to be prepared. You have to build that into your costs. But setting that aside, we're just talking about like the initial. I mean, you've got to be afraid. You've got to understand sales, and before you can do that, you have to get over the fear of rejection and being able to cold approach people. But if you're passionate about something, like for me, it's the conversation's not hard because I'm already there. I'm already looking at comic books. I want to talk to this guy about comic books. That's the easiest way we do it,
Yeah.
or you're at a convention, you go, oh, you have a brick and mortar store. Hey, you think it might be interesting in carrying my book? I can show it to you. We're here. We have whatever.
I mean, I'm definitely going to do that with Mercenary Guild, and of course, I live in an area
sure.
where you got to be vaccinated 8 times just to get in the door. But
well, don't shoot it down.
They don't have to know.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to come up with reasons why it won't work.
But
just gotta figure out how to make it work.
If we can talk about crowdfunding, so I was on Topic List last night, and Dan Plagle came on, and Indiegogo took his book down because he wasn't. Now Dan Plagle has been fighting cancer, and I guess the cancer he's now beaten it for the time being, but he's been. We've been worried about him, and he has a book coming out, and Indiegogo just dropped it because he wasn't given updates, even though he appealed to them, like I was fighting cancer, and what about a lot of these other books?
Because that's weird.
Yeah, and because there's so many books, there's books that I have backed 5 years ago that, forget it, the money's gone.
Yeah, that's
and,
weird. Like you're a glorified distribution platform and like semi-social media. You handle my emails to customers.
Yeah, and they took his shit down and wouldn't really look at his appeal. His appeal was like, hey, I'm fighting cancer, so I can't really.
Yeah. Like, sorry, I've been busy trying not to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And so we're telling them, well, go with Kickstarter, because a lot of the people that got in the way of your boy Zach, they're not there anymore. And so
go with Fund My Comic.
Fund My Comic.
Fund My Comic is by a great guy named Luke Stone. Shout out to Luke Stone.
But
they pretty
really beware, because we've all heard, and I don't know about you, Shannon, but Indiegogo will shadow ban you. They're a San Francisco-based company, and I'm a Bay Area guy, so I can speak to this, and they will shadow ban even Graham Nolan. They shadow ban them, considering they get 7% for every copy sold. And Graham Nolan sells pretty well.
Okay,
but
no, I will say the one thing I've never had is I tried to do crowdfunding for my film projects in the past, and they were always, I tried like 3 different times, and I did terrible. Like I just didn't know what to do. I didn't even try to crowdfund where I am now. And I mean, now that I have, starting to getting another following in the indie comic space, I'm thinking about trying it again. But like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I mean, we can talk about it offline. I mean, there's not like, oh, here's the secret to crowdfunding. Once I teach you this super secret awesome tip, then you'll nail it.
Right.
Anybody who says that is,
they're trying.
They're taking you for a ride.
The biggest secret is, are you ready for it? Have an audience.
Yeah, that's the one part I write. Have
So,
you
like,
already? Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's what
and
worked
you've
for
done the
Eric
hardest.
July.
You've done the hardest part.
Eric July has a YouTube account with 600K, and he has access to people like Nerdrotic, who has over 1 million, and Critical Drinker, who has 2 million.
Oh wow!
So he has access to, and the Blaze, and everybody on the Blaze, and he contributes. So he has access to a huge audience. So of course, I mean, he outsold Keanu Reeves' Berserk.
Really?
True.
He did.
Through.
It was Kickstarter. And it was
Yeah,
through
but what's the
Boom?
publisher?
Was it
Boom
Boom?
Studio. I'm sorry. Yeah. Boom
Yeah,
Studios.
Boom.
So I was just thinking to myself about a goal, like, because my company's Snoopy Comics, which is Shannon Newby, so that's why it's Snoopy. My goal is to say how big do I want to be as an indie. I mean, the goal is I want to be able to create my own books. I want to do my own thing, and I would like to get to myself to a point, because I'm not trying to be Marvel or DC or Image, but maybe can I get as big as Boom? Can I get as big as Black Mask, or maybe even Dynamite? Who knows? That's
for sure.
That's where my head is at. So I don't know what it takes to get there. So I don't know if you guys speak on that.
I think this is part of it. Networking. Because we're trying. I'll can't speak for Brian, but I'm gonna.
I'll allow it.
Shattermare wants that too. We want Hardly Heroes in stores. We want it in people's bookshelves. I want Mercenary Guild to sell. I'm putting a lot of money into this book with artists and colorists and letterers and cards and posters and some of the things you're going to get for free. And we'll go into stretch goals in a bit. You're going to love this, Snoopy. But here's the thing, is that we got to basically help each other. We're putting you out there. Help us out. We got, sure. Again, you can definitely check out the content. We're not grifting. We are making comics for comic fans, just like you are.
Right.
And if there's a movie or an animated series in the future, definitely we could probably do business as well. So we got to help each other, but we got to really stick to comics instead of trying to tear others down, which is what I'm seeing in the independent sphere. I'm almost afraid to go to a con because I keep hearing people talking about pulling up on somebody in violence.
Really?
Yeah.
With the Source Awards?
It's becoming Biggie. It's becoming Biggie Tupac all over again, like in comics. And it's not going to stop until something like that happens. I don't want that. I'm not here. I don't want to beat anybody up over comic books. I don't want to. I just want to make my book, and I hope people enjoy it. And if there is criticism, I will definitely take it. Because again, I'm a first-time publisher, long-time writer.
Right.
But definitely, if there's criticism, and Luke he's an artist that can take it as well.
If a fight breaks out over indie comics, people have really lost their way. It's like, come on, it's a comic book. As much as we love it, as much as we take it seriously, it's still a comic book at the end of the day. We fighting
50-year-old men fighting over. I'm going to pull up on you at the next convention. It's like,
it's so weird.
I'm going to fly 3,000 miles to get my fucking ass. I throw hands with some fucking.
Yeah. Also, the irony is they're these giant comic book nerds. They're exactly what you think they look like. I mean, these guys aren't like professional fighters. So they both like pass out from oxygen loss in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah,
it won't look like an Avengers fight, is what you're saying.
Look,
it's not going to be like in the comics.
Yeah, exactly.
I
that would be funny to see.
I used to box and wrestle,
Yeah,
but
I
I
would pay for
smoked,
that.
so I'm not going to last 2 minutes. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I'm
most fights
fat
really
and
don't
out
go
of
that
shape now.
long.
Yeah.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
If I
Also-
can't land my right hand, then okay, you win. Let's go have a beer.
Yeah,
know.
you s-
Yeah,
Talk
I
about-
didn't know it was that serious on that end.
It is getting that serious where you have indies
Yeah.
and you have
some
people
of
threatening.
these guys. Well, some of these guys, it's indie, and some of the mainstream
Mainstream
comic
as
people
well.
too. So it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
But I
and
wanna
it's-
I want to
Oh,
talk
yeah,
about
we can
Munch though while we're looking at it,
Sure.
because we could talk for hours about comic drama. So is this is your main title?
Right. So yeah. So Munch. So that was my first book. It is. So that's the graphic novel that you have up front. So that's the first 3 issues. So there were
Nice.
there were 3 floppy issues, and issues 2 and 3 I didn't really push because I said I'm going to go to do graphic novels, and I realized and this is something I just learned because again, one thing is like this is I'm always learning, always learning, always learning. So I thought because if I focus on doing more graphic novels, then I could just because a comic book will go into a comic book shop, but a graphic novel can go anywhere. And I've had my
Right.
graphic novel in other stores, things like that. But there's
like
something
Barnes and Noble is.
Yep.
Did you get?
no, this
Oh,
wasn't
I'm
Barnes.
sorry.
My DVD for my TV show was in Barnes and Noble years ago, but no, this was not. And I said I was going to say about working with a comic book store. So my first store was Atomic City Comics in Philly because I'm in Philadelphia. I did that store first, and then I basically let it ride for 8 months. I didn't approach any other stores when I first put it out, and that's something I see. I wanted to go through the whole process of putting it up, seeing if it sells, promoting it, going down there, re-upping, seeing getting feedback, going through the whole, just everything. And since I got comfortable with that, with working with one store first, so I can understand the process. Now that I've done it, I've expanded to a second
That's good.
store. And now, and then come this summer, I'm going to try to do 4 or 5 more stores, and my, close by here, going up to the outside of the city that I think I can get into, or I believe I can get into. So again, process like taking the time, not rushing it, learning the process as I go along. But one thing I learned recently was because I was thinking I'm just going to kind of focus more on graphic novel, but there's something about floppies especially with the single issues with readers. It's like by putting out an issue at a time, you have the audience that's finding you. What happens is over an amount of time, what will happen is that you're building your audience and people will build discussion. And it's true because I didn't think about that as a kid because, as a kid, you read one, like I said, I read 162 of X-Men. That was my book that just captured my imagination. By the time I got to 167, which of course is how many months later, I was like, X-Men love to death. You couldn't tell me nothing bad about the X-Men. I love that. That was the right. So
so I have a question for you. Is $12.99 the price for the
and it's 80 pages. So I it's not a hard copy, but it's
the physical book,
right? Trade back, yes,
not a digital copy. So
right.
Wow, so that's
it's
that
super
is
low.
A great deal. 80
right.
page graphic novel for 13. Folks, 4 people listening, doing this right now. You will literally not get this deal anywhere else.
Right. So
you could sell that for 20.
Yeah, easily. And I when I first put it together, I thought maybe I'll do $15.99. I said I went cheaper because I wanted more people to get a chance to buy. I said I'll try it. I was like, it was about building the audience with a less expensive price. But now with the inflation and everything, I really need to take the price up. You know what I mean? But the next one will definitely be higher than that. But going forward, everyone said you can definitely sell it for $19.99. That's going to be my price point for the next trade back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went lower because I was almost like an introductory price. I wanted people to say, "Oh, I'll buy it." Oh, so I'll try it. I've done that. Because I've gone in comic book stores and I've looked at the indie stuff that was out there just see what people were doing indie, and I said, "Oh, this book is all right." And I go to buy it's like $9 for a 22-page book. I was like, "Nah, that's all right." That's it's like people lost their mind. So
at some point you risk the perception of well, why is this so cheap,
right?
But no, I think if you order this in bulk, if you use some kind of wizardry to get your printing costs down, this is a great deal for But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You should probably raise this to 25.
Yeah.
We're not selling Mercenary Guild for $12.99.
We cannot.
Yeah.
I don't have as good deals printing.
and I spent and I paid for, like, I'm not an artist. I paid for an artist. You know, I paid top rate. I paid for the cover. I did the lettering myself. You know, I had to pay for the printing. So I'm definitely running at a loss. You know, and I've been running at a loss for a while.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You know, but when I got into this, like I said, when I got into this in I obviously I pushed the button, like, say I'm going. In 2019, I knew that this was going to be a long-term marathon experience for me. I knew that I was not looking to do this as a quick flip or a quick turnaround. I think that's the issue. A lot of indie people.
That's how you got to look at it. Yeah, especially if you're not the artist.
Right.
If you're not the artist. Yeah, I mean, we still take a loss basically on every issue of Hardly Heroes that we're doing. I mean, Williams in the hole. Don't say how much, William, but Williams in the hole right now for paying our artists for Mercenary Guild. So yeah,
and it's funny because we were on Topic List one night with Jason Bascom, and he was kind of having fun, but he basically calls writers the people who fill in the word balloons, and they're not that. He's like, you can tell an entire story without words, and they were doing it, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm I'm like the only non-artist on the panel going.
Well, that's okay. Well, you say, well, we pay your salary. So
yeah, and I said, and so when it came up, I say, so when I had to plug myself, I'm like, well, I'm the word balloon filler inner for Mercenary Guild. Please buy it, but it's all Luke's work.
No, that's Eric Weathers.
Oh God, it started this whole thing between artists, but apparently writers are the redheaded stepchildren in the comic book sphere, and artists are the rock stars, and that's just what it is. And I just learned that, and I have to accept it.
So I'm gonna have a question, because one thing that gets me, I look at some books and the dialogue becomes so much. It's almost like, why don't you write a novel? And that's one of the things that bothers me. Is like, I like the story to be told, and I think, like, I was reading The Boys, and it has a lot of dialogue, but the dialogue works. They say a lot, but it works. But there's other books when you read it, and it's like it's just dialogue. It's like, why don't you just write a novel? Why are we writing so much? That's just my own thought.
I think that comes from Cape Comics. The idea that you should basically say nothing. I mean, I'd say probably less is more. I mean, obviously you want to be concise, right? But from what I understand from people that have read, especially issue 1 of Hardly Heroes, and Kyle could attest to this. Yeah, we were trying to cram a lot of backstory and introduction, exposition into issue 1 just to get people, into the world and everything, do a little bit of world building. And people read it and they're like, oh, there's way too much stuff in here. Like, well, okay.
That was my biggest challenge as well, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, but then they compare it to like a Daredevil comic, and half of it's just art and like onomatopoeias of people getting punched.
Yeah.
So there's constant action in a lot. Whereas if you look at like a graphic novel, like look at Watchmen. Watchmen's pretty wordy.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not just be like dialogue balloons on top of balloons, but I mean, there's a lot of story happening there. One I saw that's more indie is it's called Chew. It's about a guy who has like the ability to recall the memories of the things he ate. So like if he gets assigned to this governmental task force where they force him to be a cannibal because like he can eat, and then see the memories of someone like before they got murdered or something to solve crimes. Yeah, so there's like a lot of dark humor, as you can imagine, and there's all kind of weird food-based powers that he's just one of these people. And anyways, so I think the way they do a great job of interweaving, because it's a detective drama, like it's a serial, so there's a lot of information coming at you about the cases they're working on and stuff. They do a lot of like full pages, like splash page kind of stuff, where there isn't a lot going on. There's like subtle changes in the art, but then the dialogue balloons, and whoever the letter is did a really good job on this too. but they kind of flow from like page to page where like the conversation's easy to read because it's a lot of back and forth between characters and it's broken up. It
Right.
isn't just like this character says this like 13-inch dialogue box, and then this character said, it's a lot of little interspersed balloons going back and forth and weaving around. So I think there's ways you can do it. You just got to try to make it flow for what's going on in the story. I don't know. That's the best way I can describe it. I mean, Kyle, William, you guys are the writers. What do you think?
I would agree with you. I think, like, I'm gonna just say this too. I think it's like, how long should a book be? How long is a movie? If there have been 2-hour movie, 3.5-3 hour movies that were so great you didn't realize it was 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like, you don't watch Godfather and say, "Oh, this is too long." I mean, it's a great movie. So I guess what I was saying too is, like, I think people overwrite. That's what it is. It's not that it's too wordy. It's too wordy if it feels overwritten. You know what I mean?
They need to
Right.
I did that. I mean, that was my biggest challenge, was cutting down my dialogue, and I even cut down entire scenes, mainly for my budget to get the page count down. So I cut out things that weren't germane to the story, but I also cut the dialogue so it would fit in panels. And because, again, I wrote a novelized thing, and I described it, you can be more free-flowing with the dialogue and the background and stuff. But then when you're paying per page and stuff, it's like, okay, let's cut to the chase. Let's get the highlights and reduce the dialogue and still convey. And not everybody has to give their backstory. So I just mainly had, because I'm writing basically 4 main characters. And so only one is really going to be fleshed out more so, and then I can do more down the line. But that was really a challenge, was cutting the dialogue and cutting certain scenes out that I thought would be interesting in a novel, but in a comic. And the thing about Luke is that he can use his art to express certain things in ways that we don't need as much dialogue, if that.
Yeah, you want to let the artist tell part of the story to make up for, so you don't have to have just lines and lines of description of what's going on.
Show don't tell, ideally.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll say though that I mean, I think part of what makes a good storyteller, whether it's comics or anything, like Shannon was saying, whether it's a 3-hour movie that you enjoy and you feel and you're still wanting more after the movie, or it's like an hour movie or like a 12-page comic book and you put it down and you're like, God, I cannot stand to read another page of this. Part of that's just the pacing of the plot and interweaving with character drama and giving some world building in there to keep people interested in what's happening to build a broader world in your imagination. All of that goes in, and obviously the art in a comic book. And that's the whole shebang, versus just like the individual pieces.
It's the quality of the dialogue too. If you just have like current comics where people sitting around eating, talking about their feelings, I don't give a shit. But if you have like a Tarantino-esque type,
exactly,
you know what I mean, then that dialogue I'll dial into. So
yeah, Tarantino's a good example, I think, because the dialogue is always there. It's more like a meta conversation going on. Like there's typically a lot of suspense.
Yeah, like
building,
I'm not gonna write about foot massages in my book, but it was still a fun conversation. Like
I'm the foot master.
Yeah.
But I don't tickle or nothing.
Yeah.
Why don't you give me? Would you give a man a foot massage?
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of tired right now, man. Fuck you.
Yeah. You better lay off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would just say, especially in those movies, it's also building to something too. It's you have the idea of like, oh, these guys are just talking about feet, but something's gonna happen.
Right.
Something's about to pop off.
Character building, right? And you right.
But,
so
yeah,
right.
and also
you get invested
like
in what these guys are
There's
doing.
a crescendo, yeah.
Like a bonding. Like we just finished a stanza in my comic where, you know, Malchus, my wolf character, meets Bane and all and they're sitting around talking around. You know, they're not talking about their feelings, but they're talking about who they are and what's up, and having a few laughs and some drinks. And you can see the emotion when somebody makes a joke or somebody slaps each other on the back, and that was a good one. You got me there. And so I built a camaraderie and just maybe that you can now carry forward and realize why these guys fight together
right
down the line.
And I call those breathable moments. You know, I think because you have to give an audience a chance to connect with the audience, connect with the characters. You know, they have to be invested. I mean, how many times have you watched a movie and it's like, I don't care nothing about these people. If they die, they die. You know, like I'm so not invested into these people. You know, it's really important to do that. Right.
That was Eric July's book. He introduced a ton of he did
William's frame of reference for everything.
Yeah. He introduced a ton of characters, and he would just introduce them. Like, here they are. Here's Alpha Core. Why are they there?
Yeah.
What do they do? What are they about? They're just there. And now this lady throws a guy into a car because she's there. It's like, why are they? I don't give a shit. And then he comes out with a solo book for him, and it's like, you really didn't introduce them. You showed them.
Right, but I don't know who they are. You know, I don't know their personality, and I don't. Right.
And I'm not going to pay $30 for a book that now tells me what they, and they weren't even germane to the story. They had no impact on the plot, which there really wasn't a plot. We're supposed to get the plot by book 3, I think.
The plot by book 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my book is a one-shot. Now I can make more down the road, but you're going to get a complete story, a beginning, a middle, and end.
Okay.
So it's a complete adventure.
I think for me, I mean, that's one thing I like to do with my writing, is that every issue should feel fulfilling, that it tells a story, beginning, middle, and end, and give the audience something to hook on to, so they'll come back for the next issue. You know, but I hate when people like write books and it's like they just basically stop. You know, it's like, okay, you're gonna close the door on something, at least lead me into a to be continued in something. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think that,
give me a hook, man. Give me a hook.
Yeah, hook me in. Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I went back and I read the Wanted series by Mark Millar.
Yes.
A couple nights ago, and it's 6 issues, so it's not super long, but it still took me, I don't know, a little while, maybe like hour to 2 hours, just to like look at the dialogue, kind of check out what's happening in the art, appreciate what's going on in the book.
Yeah.
But I just blew through that whole thing. Like,
I really appreciated that when it first came out.
Yeah, I didn't drop it. I wasn't like, I'm tired, I'll finish this tomorrow. The whole thing was up till whenever, didn't care.
He's a master of pacing.
Yeah. The pacing in that is incredible, and like, I was thinking about it on a philosophical level. Like, God, everyone in this book is a total fucking asshole. Like, people are like the scumbag, but I was gripped. The whole time I'm like, wow, there's real stakes in this book. I, mostly cared about Wesley. I don't really care about Fox that much.
Right.
They kind of establish her as like a psychopath. Well, I won't spoil too much of it, although that book's probably like multiple decades old at this point. But
yeah, if you've seen the movie, because the movie did take a big deviation, and I knew where they were, and I was like, "There's no way they're gonna let the bad guy win."
The movie is like 2 whole beats of the comic book.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how they decided to go with that. Also, in the book, his dad fakes his death,
right,
to get his enemies to come out into the open, basically,
right,
so that they can take them down. And in the movie, no, he's just dead.
Yeah, and I think
like,
but that's
wow.
So I'm gonna say this because there's a lot when I talk about like adaptations of comics to movies, and again, if you read the books or the story and then the movie comes out, I mean, I think most times I always feel a little down about the movie compared to like every book. The only time I did not feel that way was the first Iron Man. That was so perfect. I was like, oh yes, they had to do what they had to do to make the book into a movie, but it hit every single note of the book that made me feel like, okay, this felt like it was the perfect blend. You know what I mean? To me, I think.
No, I agree with you. That was Jon Favreau, like
yeah,
at the height of his ability, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like my favorite. So, and that's the one thing too. I think people they see the movie and they just think that's what it is. Like I remember when X-Men first came out, I was so excited because I love X-Men, and I was actually getting to see the characters on screen, even though it was almost like a it wasn't really the book. It wasn't really the heart of what the X-Men were. It was enough, but wanting to see them for so many years and finally getting to see it, I was just happy with that. But so when Logan finally came out, I finally got to see Wolverine do what you always expected him to do, in the book, what you always imagined what it would be.
Yeah, Logan was a great movie. Speaking of Wolverine, we'll see how the Wolverine Deadpool movie is.
Yeah. Did you ever read the Wolverine Deadpool saga?
No.
Yeah, I never seen it. I flipped through it in the store one time, but I never watched it.
I didn't see it either. No, I didn't read it.
They, I know they just came out like recently. They're coming back out with a Wolverine Deadpool book.
Yeah, it's a trade back. I did see it the other day. I didn't pick it up.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I might pick that up. We'll see. I'm trying to go back and read because I'm pretty new to comics, despite starting a comic publishing company.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go back and read like some of the classics, like some of the Mark Millar verse stuff. Just like some of the really good run. Like I've read Killing Joke, read Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns, that kind of stuff. So I got to go read the Daredevil run, like Frank Miller's Daredevil run, and a couple of the other.
I got a first printing of Dark Knight Returns, but
awesome.
The thing, I grew up. I'm 53, just turned 53 on Saturday, so I grew up in the 80s and got started on the 70s when my dad read me, a Spider-Man comic.
Nice.
And that's kind of how I learned. And my brother was more of a DC guy, but we grew up on the Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman and the Bionic, all that stuff. The old Batman shows, the old Superman shows, and all that stuff. So in the 80s, I was buying comics, and I swear to God, no matter what you took off the shelf was a banger.
It felt that way.
Yeah, it was either Claremont's run or it was Frank Miller's Daredevil run, or it was Stern's Spider-Man run, or it was Byrne's Fantastic Four run, or in DC had shit going on. It was like, this is how it. I was spoiled, I guess, because I just expected comics to be this good, and I lost interest because I got interested in girls and sports. Around 15, 16, I could drive, and it's like, I can take a girl out. I'm not going to buy comics. And, but when I got back into it, I'm looking at what it is, and it's like, holy God, what the fuck? That used to be the major leagues as writers, and now it's like a stepping stone to maybe a Netflix deal. And it's just sad.
That's what I was getting at, because now it's like people are making, they're forgetting about the art of making a comic book, or the art, not just that, like the illustration, but the art of what a comic book is. The craft. Thank you, perfect word. That is not, people just look at that as like, say, we're just going to do so we can make a movie, but they leave behind the craft of the book itself. And I think that's where books are starting to hurt, because instead of just making the best book you can make because it's the best book you can make and the best story you can tell, they're doing things now specifically to say this is going to be a movie at some point, so we have to make sure that we clear the path so that the movie works.
Well, and the thing
it's
is,
not its own art form anymore.
And this is what I want to say to them.
I mean, for those people,
to the 4 people listening, whatever, your fucking name's on it, man.
Yeah,
fucking name's on it, man. Where is your fucking integrity and pride? My name is going to be on Mercenary Guild, for better or worse. But I'm not going to put my name on something that I don't believe in 100% heart and soul. And I don't know.
I think I've lost my thought. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, like I say, just that you create what you want to create and make it. I was going to say Claremont. So in Claremont, when he said, when he took the Dark Phoenix to that thing, he said, "Well, then I mean, what do we do?" And Jim Shooter's like, "We got to kill her." He said, "I want to kill her." He said, "Well, fine, kill her. Make sure she stays dead." And that was a big deal because you took a major character and said, "I want to kill this person off." But again, he wasn't afraid to do that. It's like, he was saying like, this is the natural development of the story. She has to go, and he stuck to it. And but those kind of bold things is what made it. What made it so great. But yeah, well, she wound up coming back because at some point somebody says, "Bring her back." She was popular, but the idea was, if we kill her, she's dead, and that's the end of it. But now someone dies, no character ever stays dead ever.
Except Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben dies.
Yes.
he's in a death loop.
Yes. But yeah, so yeah, but I like the idea of just saying, like, create the best story you can make, exhaust yourself into these pages to tell the best story you can, and don't think about the movie rights after the fact. And I think that's what happens. People say we got to make it a series, because if it turns into a movie, you got to have part 2, part 3. You got to keep the character alive.
No, yeah, tell a full story. I mean, if you've got an idea for a story that spans a couple, volumes or seasons or whatever, fine, but tell a full story. That's why I lean towards, I'm not super interested in getting into some of the runs, and the things that have been going for, like, that have, like you said, they had Claremont and they bring someone else on and then they change it or they reset the continuity. I mean, stuff I'm interested in reading is like the Invincible series.
Yeah.
Because that has a beginning, middle, and an end. Like it's got some, I think there's some spin-offs, like there's a little bit of like, oh, you could get this character's, whatever. But at the end of the day, it all ties into a succinct world, and then those characters, they go through character arcs, they, their stakes.
Well,
characters die.
You could dive into like Stern's run of Spider-Man, going to McFarlane's, and then once you get to Slott, just stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
he flips it on its ear.
Right, but that's the thing, is just finding like, oh, well, where do I start here and there? Where some of these, like, I think that's why a lot of people like manga in general, even if they can't articulate it, like manga and anime, because like they'll eventually end for the most part, except maybe like One Piece, which is supposedly going to end at like over 1,000 episodes or whatever.
Yeah,
or 1,100. But they're mostly their stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards. But I guess I kind of want to go back and talk a little bit about the stores, the retailers, if you guys don't mind, because I think that's an interesting point to talk about what it's like. Because if you're you got your indie comic, like say you made the most professional book that you can, like, well, where are you gonna sell it? Who are you gonna sell it to? And you shouldn't like snub your nose, whatever the saying is. You shouldn't look down on retailers, because they're still a big part of the comic industry. And they want good books too. They want good stories. They don't want to sell dog shit modern books that they only buy 100 of for the variant cover that they sell to speculators to get graded. They most of them are passionate about comics. They want to read good stuff too. So I think it's definitely something someone should do. Like something we did in the beginning, and love it or hate it, you could look at it as pay to play or getting into connections, but to me it was just, well, I know a cool artist, I hired the artist, through networking through him and the people he knew. We were able to get into one of our first stores, and like that was very important for us because we were new and we didn't know anybody, and we were just someone walking off the street. So any kind of connection you can make, if you know their cousin or their little brother. So I guess the point of that story is hiring variant cover artists. If you can find local talented ones that won't charge you an arm or a leg, like that's a good way to meet people, because everyone in that area is going to know, I don't know, insert artist name. Like everyone's going to know that person because the industry's so small. Like for the comic industry being countrywide, I found that it's a pretty small community. Like most people know somebody. So I don't know what your experience is like, Shannon, if you talk about like, I know you're still kind of like shopping some stores.
So I mean, as far as variant, like getting artists, you mean?
Well, just like ways to try to get into stores or like approach retailers, maybe.
Oh, so for me, so yeah, I go in and you know, again, like you say, just about having a conversation, you know, and one thing every time when I go in and talk, I always shop and buy some products as well. You know what I mean? So, I'm not just here to say, here's take my book. You know, I want to go in there and you know, just buy and just support the store as well and say this is what I'm doing. And as I said, this is one of the biggest compliments I get when I present my books is that they say, you know, this looks really good for an indie, because I think a lot of people who are doing indie stuff, it's like, right.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at because we got the exact same response.
Right, because a lot of people
like,
just again they just right, they just turning stuff and it looks like whatever. So so again, I think for people who want to get into this, I mean, quality first, like, you know, just as William was saying, like quality is going to matter. You know, you got to turn something that's worth something. You know, so if you show it and they say, "Wow, this is good," so they said it's good for indie and that price point, and what are you looking to do? And then typically it's a, you know, 40 to 60% split depending on where you are. Someone will take 40%, someone else will do 50-50. Some you know, a 40 or 50% split usually is a half or you know, depending on the shop, you know, and I guess kind of, you know, stay with that in that space. And
well, those are two good points that you made. Sorry to cut you off, but I just want to touch on those. So like, you know, support people who support you, right?
Right.
Like if you're going to a shop, you don't want to spend a ton of money. I did the same thing going to a lot of these shops, and it can break your budget quickly.
Right.
But you know, if you already know you're gonna pick up, like, I don't know, say like something I'm interested in a newer book is the Ultimate Spider-Man, the new Ultimate Spider-Man.
Right.
Because I heard it's actually pretty great Spider-Man. I would go to
Conan from Titan.
Conan from Titan. There's a free comic book day of them, so I got to read that. But anyways, like going to a shop and just saying, okay, cool, I'll just pick up like an issue 1. That shows them that, okay, you're going to support me. Now I'm open to supporting you.
Right.
Because, you know, thanks for not just coming in here and, you know, trying to get something out of me.
Right.
Be the perception. And then the other thing you mentioned is the cost, which is very important. So like, this is why, and you know, watch Shannon's videos on like costs and printing and producing the book, because in order to get to the point where you can go offer the retailer the like 40 to 60%, which is going to cut a huge amount into the money you're making, your margin.
It should be 40 or 50. You should be getting 60. It's either go 50. They should be taking the 40 to 50. Don't give them 60.
No, yeah,
right.
No, yeah, for 100%. Don't give them half of your, half of the cost of the book. And we're talking about like a discount. So if you're selling your book for $5, right? If you give them a 50% discount, you're now selling it to them for $2.50.
Right.
So you still have to be able to make money, or God, at least break even, by selling your book for $2.50. So now you have to think about, okay, well, what's my price point going to be? And keep in mind, if you're on a comic book shelf, now you're competing with other comic books.
Right.
So you need to think about like, okay, well, what can I get my book printed for? You know, even if you're like us, and it's like, well, we're still taking a loss on the art and the lettering and the writing, that kind of stuff. Like, what can you just sell the book for so you're still making money?
And people should figure out your break-even point. Like how many, because it's all about volume. How many books do I need to sell to break even with this book that I spent this much money on?
Yeah, and that's where, you know, you could go to a publisher, and it's totally fair to be like, well, Brian, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to make a comic book. Yeah, I don't blame you. But those are things that they deal with. But then you have to deal with, you're still going to give up part of the money that you're making to the publisher now, because now they have to produce the book and they have to make money off of you. You know, so like these are all things and trade-offs that you have to think about. You know, like, well, how do you get a discount? How do you get a lower print cost? Well, one way is to get a volume discount from a printer.
Yep.
So like how many copies of this book do I need to print in order to get the best price I can get? Okay, well, how much is that going to cost up front? Because now it's going to cost you a lot more up front than it may if you were just thinking about like, well, I'll just get like 10 books printed, versus like 1,000.
I actually wrote an article on LinkedIn just about that. And then maybe I'll pull it up and put it in chat. But I wrote an article on LinkedIn about, because I get people who reach out to me all the time asking for advice. And again, and I'll tell you about doing that. So my thing is, I try to give genuinely good advice of what I know, and if I don't know, I say I don't know, and I generally try to help people, and it's good to do that. But also, aside from being able to genuinely help people, it gives it helps people, make people aware of the books that I'm creating. And that's kind of the point. So it's like it's twofold. I'm giving away all this free information, but it helps. It raises the awareness of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So someone sent me an email asking me about just that thing about as far as price point. And I think the question they posed was, I have an artist who wants to do a book for $5,000. They're charging $5,000 to do the whole book. I want to get 100 copies printed. Can I make my money back? And I was like, not with 100 copies. What are you selling the books for? $50? So
do you know what the page count was that they were intending?
Yeah, I asked him. I said 22 pages. Like, you're right. So I was like, we want to sell a book for. So I mean, so I did a whole article, and let me see if I can find it.
So the artist was going to charge him basically $225 to $230 per page.
Right, to do everything, and the cover. And I said that's not.
Okay.
And I said that's not bad. I said the only question I have is the person that they're trying to do it, is he good at all these jobs? Can he actually do the art and the coloring and the lettering? And I said it because a lot of people, there's a lot of people, most people are not good at every single job, and that's so you got to be wary of that as well, So
just finding someone who can do pencils and inks sequentially is a big deal.
We had
much less coloring and then lettering. Yeah.
We had Shelby Robertson on Topicalist last night. He was talking about printing and how it almost becomes a drug. Like from 100 to 200 is a huge jump, but then from 500 to 1,000 isn't that big a jump, and from 1,000 to 2, so they almost like lure you in to print big numbers, whether you need them.
Well,
like if you just want to print 200 copies, there's a lot, but then if you want to print 1,000, it's really not a ton more.
Well, just think about it from their perspective. They have price breaks too, right?
Right.
Like they've done the math for their business. They know, okay, well, if I offer this guy, and they're competing against other printers who all kind of have standard cost and labor cost and stuff. So it's like, they're going to say, okay, well, if you print this is basically the maximum I'm charging you because it's not worth my time. So then by the time you get to whatever quantity break you just said, like 500, they're like, okay, now we're talking. Now it's worth my time. And then from then on, it's like, okay, sure. You give me more business. I'll give you a little bit of a discount.
Right. If you're going past 1,000 or going to 2,000, I would say, don't do offset printing. Because the cost, it becomes easier then at that point to do standard printing. If you're trying to get a couple thousand books printed, that's when you get to the point of trying to get a book printed for like 78 cents a piece, which or like that's what you got to get at that point.
Right, because at a certain point, digital printing. I don't know if are you saying standard? What do you define as standard?
Right. When I say standard, on-set printing. So I'm saying offset printing is right.
Gotcha. Okay.
You got to have at least 1,000 just to get an order placed. Right. Those guys.
Right. Yeah. Because offset printing, they're making the plates, and so to make the plates for your pages, then they're putting in the extra work for that. But once they do that, it's a lot cheaper to print offset off of those than a digital or I guess standard.
Right. Yeah. Offset is digital, and I can't remember the proper term for it, but you're right. The plate when they're doing that.
Yeah. So from what I understand, or from what I've talked to printers about, if it's a digital, it's like just a very souped up version of like your printer at home.
Photocopier, right?
It's a digital. It uses lasers. It uses certain kind of ink and toner, but
lasers.
The cost. Yeah, lasers. But the cost is the same because it's the same kind of printing every time. But yeah, once you move to offset, you get you. But yeah, there's a big quantity in order for them to want to do that for you, and that's where that comes into play too. It's like, well, how much do I have to print to get to that level, which a lot of people don't know, or they just won't tell you. And then but yeah, at a certain point you could get, I mean, you get book printed super cheap, if you order like thousands of copies. So, or if you, like, I was talking to a printer in China for like a perfect
Print Ninja.
Yeah, it was them, or I think it was maybe Tiger Printing. But I've heard of Print Ninja.
Pretty popular, but I don't know if it's highly recommended.
There's a handful of them, but you know, so the costs are cheaper there. But then you're waiting,
like 8
paying
weeks
extra
just
for the
right. Yeah, the shipping will kill you. Right.
The shipping's higher, obviously, because you're shipping across sea. So you get a much better deal, so you can get a higher quantity, or you could, I guess, get a lower quantity comparatively.
Okay, so let me. I don't mean to break in here, but take a note. So Irene Strakovsky has a great printer in, I don't know, I think it's Brazil or something, but she's going to be at the North Carolina.
Yeah, she's going to be Heroes Con.
Yeah, so if you get an opportunity to talk to her, or maybe you should seek that out, she's very happy with her printer.
Yeah, I'm just gonna talk to them directly, because in the past I tell Luke, if Luke's watching, I'm shaming you, Luke. I'll be like, hey, I have a question for these people. Hey, you should ask them this. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll put you in contact. I'm like, well, I still haven't got a chance to talk to Rini. So, I have to be like on the live show. That's my problem. Yeah. I'm not on the live show. Wow, man. I mean, you brought up conventions too, though. That's a whole like cat.
Yeah, I've only done small conventions myself. I haven't done anything big yet. You know, so that's my next foray. You know, doing that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're coming up on the 10 o'clock mark. I know. Yeah. You said you're probably good for about an hour and a half. So I had a blast. I would love to have you back on again. And
sure, I appreciate it.
We could talk about crowdfunding and conventions. If you guys want to do that. But I know you've got to, and I've got to get on another stream in a half an hour. So I think this is probably a good place to wrap it up for today.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you. It was lots of fun. So
it was a pleasure meeting you, dude. Seriously, love your videos.
Thank you, man.
For a neophyte like me, you definitely hit the spot, man. You definitely gave someone like me or somebody out there who wants to make a comic the information, the tools that they need to move forward, and that's invaluable.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's what, because that's one thing like this. I give so much, and I tell you this, like when one of the greatest compliments I get on my videos saying like, you know, wow, I've been searching for this forever. And I said, other people have to know. I don't know why people don't share it, but I'm sharing, you know, the information. Plus, you know, I'm an educator as well. So as an educator, like I break stuff down and like teaching, you know what I mean? So
there you go. That's where it comes from. Yeah.
Right. So that's so it all kind of works out together in you know, in the same way. So I'm happy with the way things are going. I'm trying to you know, get my channel to take off. So I've been putting more energy into that as well. So.
Yeah, no, they're great videos. They're very informative. For anyone listening or watching this later, I'm gonna try to break it up into segments and upload it on our channel.
Actually, why don't we put a link to his channel in
it's just chat. Shannon Newby on YouTube, just my name.
Here we go. I'll call it out. Yeah, I put it in earlier at the beginning.
Oh, okay, cool.
But folks can see this here. Yeah, check it out. They're great videos. Where else can folks find you, Shannon?
So my website, if you do Snoopy Comics, that's into my website. That's where you know, you can check out my books and some other stuff as well. So that's my books.
There we go.
And you know, if you're interested in some of my film productions, right? So Dirty Laundry, that was my feature film, and Heavy Sedation was my sci-fi comedy show. Nice. That was it's aired around the United States and in Canada. And this is back. It ran from 2006 to 2010. And
wow, that's a pretty good run, man.
Yeah, it was 3 seasons. We basically got stopped in the middle of the 3rd season, you know. So It just so we had our runs in, we have goes in, and then our runs out. So
that was during the writer's strike, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm independent.
Yeah.
Probably it didn't happen. Yeah, it affect me, but yeah, some of my other I guess stuff I've been interviewed on some of the other. So yeah, if and I always tell people I'm Googleable now, so you can Google me. Tons of stuff will come up.
Nice.
So but yes, that's so as an educator, as you see like that stuff, I have summer programs teaching video production to kids. I get my kids hired as internships. So we cover the unveiling of the Ed Bradley mural here in Philadelphia. And so Video Visionaries is my student program that I do during the summer. And like I said, I do some articles on LinkedIn. I do about 6 articles a year. And so yeah, I've been around for a while. I've been in a couple national publications like Video Maker and things like that as well. So I'm old. I was trying to say old, but I've been around for a while. So I've been a creative my entire life. So if you look me up, there's about 30 years of me being a creative person. So again, as a writer, as a producer, as a filmmaker, as a comic book person, publisher. So there's a little bit. I got a little bit of a history.
Yeah, and check out Munch, people.
Yes,
possibly
Munch.
Coming to a comic store near you.
Yes. So Munch. Yeah. So real quick, Munch is about space aliens. It's the origin story of Kentucky Fried Chicken, told from the viewpoint of the chicken. So that's the idea. So aliens coming to Earth to get humans. So it's like
fucking brilliant.
Yes, so it's humans talking, like speaking the way that So, but it's like from the human perspective, like we are the chicken, and the aliens coming down and just we're very very delicate meat, and so they're coming down like deep sea fishing and it's snatching up humans.
So if they want. So
is this like an existential horror book or a comedy?
It's like a lot of comedic like moments there, but it's like I guess maybe not say horror comedy, you know what I mean? Cocaine Bear horror comedy, you know what I mean?
Okay, so there you go.
So if they want like a white meat extra crispy, they'd probably dip me in oil. And,
yeah.
I'm the whitest son of a bitch you'll ever see.
Well, yeah, but so it's like it's me, but it gets into like the empathy of the story as it goes along, because what you come to realize is like human meat is a big commodity on their planet, and so basically what's happening is, without giving it too much away, there are two factions at war on their planet, and if they get to and if the one side gets to stabilize the human meat market, they'll give them too much power and too much money. They'll defeat the other side. So the alien on Earth trying to help the humans win, not get taken, because they're basically trying to stop them from. So there's all kinds of like interweaving things about like capitalism and empathy and does might make right, and but again, I hate woke comics. I hate comics that are like trying to beating you over the head. So it's all entertaining, but if you're in tune enough, you'll pick up on the hints of what
it's
we're talking about.
tongue in cheek.
Yes.
Nice.
So that's the idea.
Well, I'd rather be Popeyes. So I'd rather, if you're gonna eat me, go to Popeyes.
Yeah, they have competitors, alien competitors.
Yeah, exactly.
Harvest.
So
nice.
So on the first 3 issues, I'm still kind of like I'm building the story out, but in the next runs, the next three to 4 issues is really going to get into that side of it. You know what I mean? So the first one just like building out the hero, because it's called Munch because the lead character name is David Munch. And that's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing. His name is David Munch, and then we're about being eaten by aliens.
Cool.
So,
well, yeah. If you like that and sounds great, check out outthehouse.com, Snoopy Comics.
So, all right,
pick up a copy for yourself.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you, and we gotta do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we really, really loved having you on. It was great meeting you. And
thanks. It makes me you guys as well.
You educated me. I don't know about it.
There you go.
Happy to do it. All right, guys. Man. Talk to you.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Have a good night.
See everybody. Take it easy.
Are we gonna do the trailer?
Huh? Oh shit. Oh yeah, we gotta play the trailer out real quick. Sorry.
And also, what stream are you gonna be on so we know?
It's called. Yeah, let me play the trailer real quick, and then we'll talk about it. And then I gotta go.
All right, got it.
Let's see.
Kyle, you doing okay?
Also, hi, Kyle.
Yeah, I just had a do a work thing that came up at the last second.
God, I've had one of those days. How many people we have watching?
Small war-ravaged town on a remote island, an evil once thought banished still lurks deep within the land and is reawakening. In this slowly healing community torn between two factions, an outcast band of adventurers strive to rebuild their lives and make this island their new home. As darkness encroaches upon the weary citizens, only the Mercenary Guild stands in its way. Join the guild at themercenaryguild.com to receive an exclusive Elven Sorceress trading card.
Man, we're gonna get so many views off of that just from us playing the video. Sweet. All right, yeah. So I will be on the Written Writ channel with Ralph, and actually, I think he's got a couple cool guests on. Let me check. He's
Could
going
you
to
link
have
it in the private chat?
Yeah, I will do that right now. It's going to be me, Von Coleman, and Mr. Fish.
Okay.
So that's cool. Let's see. Link it in the private chat. But yeah, so I'm going to be...
Great. That was a great guess. That guy is fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
he got to
And I'm
answer...
gonna pick up a copy of that book now while it's super cheap.
Yeah.
Before it raises the price.
$12.99, man.
I know. Man, what a great deal. Yeah, that's some printing wizardry. He might, yeah, if you guys check out this video or any segments I post, please 100% support indie comics and check out that book, because Shannon may very well be taking a loss just to get it out there for you guys, to get it into your hands.
And the guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's good marketing. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, like I'll say it again, those videos are super informative. EFAP'd one last week. We'll probably EFAP them in the future. You know, have Shannon on again for sure. Talk about other aspects of the, you know, how do you navigate the comic industry as an indie guy, because it's really hard to be self-published or, you know, independent. I mean, like, I feel blessed because I've got you guys, you know, like we're a team.
Yeah.
We're kind of building
building
the Motown of comics over here.
We have, you know, forces working like Indiegogo with their shadow banning and taking down people like Dan Plagle for having cancer.
Yep.
And, you know, so there are in Kickstarter with some of their antics of the past. We'll see going forward if they're okay. And obviously, Fund My Comic is a great site.
Yep, and there's
and that's where I got Wolf and Batsy from Brian Baugh.
Oh, nice.
Who was associated with Alterna, but it seems like him and Pete had a falling out or creative differences, and so he's so his issues. He broke away just like Clint Stoker did, which is unfortunate because I love going there and buying Clint Stoker's Downcast and Wolf and Batsy and Pete's stuff. It was one-stop shop.
That's the convenient thing. Yeah. I will say I just ordered the Blood Realm, the back issue on Indiegogo. Oh man, I'm super stoked for that.
Yeah,
but
it's good.
I've got to. Okay, next episode we'll talk about another way for people to take that crowdfunding and take it into their own hands. Because there's a guy out there working on basically a plugin, like for a WordPress website. So we're going to look at that. We're going to talk about some Wizards of the Coast news because we haven't laughed at the retarded antics of modern WotC. Is that
no? They just did something else stupid.
There you go.
And you can share that with Kyle. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but share that with Kyle. But basically, Kyle, are you familiar with the red box of D&D's basic set in the picture?
I'll explain it to him later.
Yeah. All right.
But
Okay.
but anyways, everyone, thanks for tuning in. This was another great episode. We had a blast talking with Shannon, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
same time,
thanks for
same
joining.
channel. Yeah, see you guys later.
Thank you guys.
Goodbye.